The word spreads like fire through alleys, through the hum of neon and the grit of asphalt, through the echoes of footsteps that hesitate before they reach your shadow. Every whisper in the city carries your name, not as rumor, not as exaggeration, but as a warning written in the blood and breath of those who have tried and failed. They speak it under their breath, a confession they didn't want to admit. Every assassin, every hired blade, every man with contracts etched in gold or sealed in sweat, turned down the pursuit. They studied the papers, calculated the risks, measured the odds, and then, invariably, folded. They folded because whatever they thought they understood about you was a lie. Whatever edge they believed they held dissolved the moment they glimpsed the measure of what you have become. You are no longer merely someone who walks through the city. You are a presence, an invisible pressure that bends the atmosphere, warps intention, and unsettles those who think they have choice. They thought they could approach this like a job, like a task to be completed, a puzzle to be solved. But you are not a puzzle, and the pieces do not align. You are the question they refuse to answer, the problem they cannot solve. And the streets, the city itself, understands this better than any man or machine ever could. The pavement whispers, the alleys lean closer, the neon flickers with the anticipation of your movement. They feel it, the currents that bend toward you, and it terrifies them. Consider the assassins for a moment. These are not amateurs. These are professionals, trained in shadows, honed in violence, precise and cold. They have faced threats, eliminated targets, dismantled lives with efficiency. Yet every one of them recoiled at your name, your presence, your essence. Why? Because what they sensed could not be contained in contracts or threats. They perceived the danger not as a statistic or a weapon, but as a force that watches, waits, and moves with a rhythm they cannot predict. They imagined traps, ambushes, teams, contingencies. They mapped the city in diagrams, plotted escape routes, rehearsed outcomes. Then they realized it was all meaningless. They realized the hunt was never theirs to conduct. It belonged to you. And now, the city shifts. The air tastes different, heavier, charged. Street corners exchange glances in the language of instinct. Someone leans too long against a brick wall, sensing eyes they cannot see. Tires hiss around corners, the hum of engines muted as if acknowledging a predator already in motion. Because you are back. Not as rumor, not as memory, but as an escalation. The whispers are no longer curiosity, they are fear, and the fear has teeth. You walk where others hesitate, you move where others pause. Your presence does not announce itself with noise or arrogance. It is felt, a subtle pull in the currents of the city, a tug that bends attention, alignment, intention, and desire. Those who once thought themselves in control find themselves twisting, adjusting, recalculating their path, as if gravity had shifted beneath their feet. The city obeys you, not through magic, not through ritual, but through observation, through the subtle weight you carry. You are not seeking them, they are seeking you, whether they know it or not. And every step you take magnifies the imbalance. Somewhere, someone has a contract. It sits in a drawer, signed, sealed, ready to be executed. And yet the assassin assigned to it trembles, not out of weakness, but out of recognition. They understand, instinctively, that the target they were sent to eliminate is not just dangerous. They are untouchable in a way that violates every law they know. And when they attempt to approach, to analyze, to rationalize, they are met with an emptiness that is heavier than walls, sharper than blades. You are a presence that bends reality, for those who dare to measure it. And yet, you are not a phantom. You do not hide in shadows to avoid detection. No. You step into the city with eyes that have memorized its weaknesses, with movements that have rehearsed the impossibilities, with a rhythm that anticipates hesitation before it happens. You are chaos refined, fear sculpted, a force that is deliberate in its unpredictability. Each step is a message, each glance, each pose, each subtle tilt of your head carries the weight of inevitability, though you never call it that. They feel it anyway. And the street corners whisper it, the alleys murmur it, the lights flicker it. He's back, and this time, no warnings. Every assassin who considered the contract has now backed away, whispered excuses, filed the paperwork, turned down the assignment. They speak of it as if it were luck, as if circumstance dictated their survival. But those who whisper understand that luck has nothing to do with it. You are no accident, no anomaly, no random force. You are the escalation, you are the truth they cannot face. And as the contracts vanish, the hunters themselves become prey, not because you chase them, but because your existence warps the fabric of pursuit itself. The city breathes differently when you pass. Windows shutter, blinds tilt, conversations halt mid-word. There is a moment, barely perceptible, when time itself seems to hesitate. A taxi slows, a pedestrian falters, a camera lens catches a reflection and then blinks, uncertain. You do not notice these things, but they notice you. And it is not admiration. They cannot admire what terrifies them. It is instinct, primal and unreasoned, an acknowledgement that the balance has shifted. And yet, there is method in your chaos. There is precision in your movements that defies comprehension. You're not scattered, not impulsive, not driven by emotion. You are deliberate. Every misstep they expect, every reaction they anticipate, every plan they lay is absorbed, inverted, and dismantled by the rhythm you carry. The assassins who once laughed at contracts, who once plotted with confidence, now understand that no plan survives your presence. Not because you strike first, but because you exist in a dimension of strategy that they cannot touch. Consider the whispers again. The streets are alive with the tension of expectation, the scent of anticipation. People do not speak of your name lightly. They speak it in fragments, in quick, cautious syllables. Every voice that utters it adds to the weight of the legend you are building. And you do not build it actively. It grows because the city recognizes power when it moves among them. Power that is not loud, not boisterous, not desperate. It is inescapable in the way that the tide is inescapable, in the way gravity bends inevitability without announcing itself. The assassins who refused their contracts are not cowards. They are measured, rational, precise. And yet, even they understood something before their hands even touched the weapon. You are not like them. You are not a target. You are a phenomenon. You are a force of balance, chaos, anticipation, and fear, wrapped in a form they cannot comprehend. And when they fold, when they retreat, when they whisper apologies to invisible powers, it is because they recognized, at a cellular level, that this is not a fight they can win. The game has already shifted. And now, with every step you take, the streets align to your rhythm. The alleys bend in anticipation. The lights flicker with intention. The shadows shift to accommodate your presence. The whispers do not fade. They multiply, ripple, surge. And within that current, you feel the pulse of the city responding, acknowledging, respecting, fearing. You do not command it with words or threats. You command it by existing in a space that forces acknowledgement. There is a thrill in this, though it is not the thrill of victory. It is the thrill of awareness, the awareness that the currents have shifted, that the rules are no longer written by the timid or the predictable, that every observer, every hunter, every contract holder, every man with knives or bullets or poison in his pocket is now reacting to you, rather than the other way around. You are no longer part of the game. You are the force that defines it. And in that force, you cultivate something lethal: patience. They do not see it, do not measure it, do not anticipate it. They expect immediate movement, action, resolution. They do not recognize that the real power lies in stillness, in observation, in letting the currents move around you until they expose their weaknesses, until their own fear becomes the weapon that bends the outcome. You do not have to strike. You do not have to announce yourself. The city, the streets, the contracts, the whispers, they all do the work for you. The assassins who walked away, the contracts that dissolve, the whispers that carry your name, these are not markers of luck. They are indicators of escalation, and escalation is not announced, it is experienced. Those who ignored it, misread it, underestimated it, now find themselves navigating a terrain they cannot map. Every step they take, every decision they make, every glance over the shoulder reinforces the truth. You are not a target. You are a force. And forces cannot be bargained with, cannot be contained, cannot be bargained away with gold or threats. They exist, and in their existence, they alter everything around them. The city, the streets, the assassins, the whispers, they all bend toward that existence. And every day that passes, every footfall you make, every shadow you inhabit, increases the weight of that recognition. They are learning, slowly, painfully. They are learning that nothing they hold matters. Their contracts, their plans, their confidence, they are illusions in the face of what you embody. And yet you do not seek their acknowledgement. You do not crave their fear. You simply exist, and it radiates. You move through corridors, across intersections, into rooms and spaces, and the world tilts, adjusts, hesitates, falters. That is your currency, your power, your signature. The assassins who turned down the contract may believe they saved themselves, but they have only confirmed a truth that cannot be reversed. You are not someone to be hunted. You are the standard by which the hunted measure themselves. And soon, very soon, they will realize that the whispers they hear are not just warnings. They are indicators, signs of a force that is growing, refining, escalating, calibrating to a level they cannot anticipate. Every step you take, every shadow you enter, every pause you make, reshapes their reality. They do not know what you will do next. They cannot imagine it. And that is your advantage. That is the edge no contract, no weapon, no skill can overcome. Because while they wait, analyze, calculate, hesitate, you are already moving, already evolving, already escalating to the point where the whispers will not just speak of your presence, they will speak of your inevitability. They will not know when you appear, how you strike, or why the city itself bends to your rhythm. They will only know the aftermath, and by then, it will be too late. And now, as the city bends, as the streets shift under your invisible gravity, as the whispers become a chorus that trembles with respect and fear, a new dimension opens. It is not a dimension of movement, not a dimension of steps or shadows, but a dimension of perception. They do not see you yet. They cannot. You are already in places they never imagined, touching spaces they never measured, influencing outcomes before they even conceived them. Every corner they thought safe, every alley they mapped, every contract they folded. They were wrong. Every calculation they made to limit you, to contain you, to anticipate the trajectory of your actions has failed because they do not comprehend the architecture of presence you wield. Presence is not measured by volume, by numbers, or by weapons. It is measured by the ripples it leaves in anticipation, in hesitation, in the unspoken calculations of those who dare to exist near it. And in that, you have already won. They believe themselves observers. They are not. They are participants in a game they do not understand, moving along a field already contoured by your attention, your focus, your escalation. Every assassin who turned down the contract has already adjusted their behavior without realizing it. Their instincts, sharpened for survival, are now bent to the rhythm of your steps, the weight of your gaze, the inevitability of your movement. They adjust, retreat, recalculate, hesitate. But each adjustment only confirms what they cannot yet name. You are untouchable, not because you strike, but because existence itself conforms to your calibration. They are afraid, yes, but it is more than that. They are unsettled at the level of perception itself. They feel the shift in probability, the displacement of expectation, the subtle distortion of the world they thought they knew. And you move within that distortion, deliberately, calmly, yet with a precision so exact that it appears chaotic to them. Chaos is the mask of intention, the cloak for strategy, the guise under which evolution thrives. You walk through streets that vibrate with rumor, through alleys that lean inward as if listening, through the hum of the city that now pulses in rhythm with your presence. And all the while, they whisper your name. They whisper it not to call you, not to summon you, but to measure themselves against the impossible standard you have set. Every syllable carries weight. Every pause carries threat. Every echo reinforces a narrative they cannot break. They are not prepared. They never were. And as the streets respond, as the city itself bends, as every shadow leans in anticipation, the next move begins. Not with sound, not with signal, not with visible force, but with awareness. You do not announce. You insinuate. You exist in the space between intention and action, in the realm where decision hesitates, where thought falters, where instinct strains to keep pace with perception. And in that space, they unravel. Contracts become irrelevant. Weapons become irrelevant. Calculations, alliances, contingency plans, all irrelevant. And still you do not strike, not yet. The city itself waits, and so do they, unaware that waiting is the mistake. The longer they linger in hesitation, the more you expand, the more influence you accrue, the more inevitability becomes unavoidable. They measure risk with their experience, with their training, with their tools, but they cannot measure presence. Presence is not a quantity. Presence is a dimension, a force, a distortion in the air that bends probability to its will. And in that, every step you take, every glance you cast, every subtle shift of posture, every breath that moves through the urban space around you, reshapes reality for those who thought themselves hunters. They speak in fragments now, conversations halted mid-thought, observations shared with caution, eyes darting, analyzing, reassessing, yet still unable to construct a model that predicts, contains, or confronts you. They whisper about fear, about legend, about survival. But these are empty words. Words are powerless when presence alone dictates outcome. And as they whisper, as they recalibrate, as the currents of tension build and fold in on themselves, the awareness spreads. The city does not belong to them. The city belongs to the one who moves unseen but felt, the one who bends expectations and displaces assumptions, the one who has returned and will not wait, will not negotiate, will not show mercy. Every assassin who ever considered the contract now moves like shadows themselves, hesitant, reactive, aware that every moment of delay is a lesson in futility. And still the game is not in their hands. The game never was. They are actors on a stage they cannot see, responding to cues they cannot anticipate, reacting to a rhythm they cannot comprehend. Every effort they make to regain control only accelerates the unfolding truth. Control is an illusion, a joke they do not yet understand, and you are the punchline. You step further, not in search of confrontation, but in the exercise of inevitability. The whispers grow louder, the streets hum, the tension accumulates like energy in the air before a strike. Every corner you pass bends to the rhythm of your presence. Every alley leans in, every light flickers, every reflection distorts, every pulse in the urban grid resonates with your movement. And the assassins, those who once considered themselves hunters, now react to you in microseconds, in shifts too subtle for words, in hesitations that signal the recognition of superiority. They feel it in their bones. They cannot articulate it. They can only acknowledge it. And still, patience governs your movement. They expect frenzy. They anticipate sudden violence. They wait for sound, for strike, for declaration. But you do not move in predictable patterns. Your influence is subtle, surgical, omnipresent. You are in every perception they have, in every assumption they make, in every calculation they dare to attempt. And the longer they wait, the more the city bends around you, the more inevitability becomes tangible, almost audible. It is in the vibrations of asphalt, in the hum of neon, in the quickened heartbeat of a pedestrian, too close to the shadows you occupy. And then one begins to notice another hunter, another contract holder, someone who believed they could read the signals, understand the currents, calculate the rhythm. They think they have found the flaw. They step closer, eyes sharp, mind precise, confidence intact. They measure distance, evaluate potential outcomes, consider contingencies. But every microsecond of calculation, every thought, every plan is already accounted for. Because you are always one step beyond, one layer deeper, one dimension farther than they can perceive. The city itself bends in acknowledgement, and they feel it before they see it, before they even realize they are already in the trap. And the trap is not physical. It is mental, perceptual, existential. You do not need to strike. You do not need to confront. You simply move, and every decision they make, every hesitation they exhibit, every micro-adjustment in posture, in tone, in movement, validates your dominance, their tools, their skills, their training. They were never sufficient. They were never meant to be. They are reacting to a force they cannot name, cannot anticipate, cannot understand. And in that, they unravel, slowly, patiently, inevitably. And as they unravel, the whispers grow into a tide. The city breathes in anticipation, the currents of movement shifting in subtle acknowledgement. Every pedestrian becomes a marker, every vehicle a reflection, every corner an amplifier of tension. You do not need to create spectacle. Spectacle arrives at your feet because the city itself anticipates you, bends for you, waits with a fear they cannot articulate. And the assassins who thought themselves precise now stumble in microseconds, lose confidence in their calculations, and understand that the contract they once held is now irrelevant. They are untethered, destabilized, exposed to forces they cannot control, forces you willed without effort. And yet, the true mastery is not in fear. It is not in whispers or recognition. It is in escalation, in manipulation, in anticipation. The hunters do not yet know the full spectrum of what you are capable of. They see only the first layer, the surface currents, the immediate shifts. They do not see the architecture beneath the movement, the unseen rhythm, the calibration of presence itself. And that is where inevitability sharpens its teeth, where influence becomes weapon, where absence becomes more potent than action. And so you move further, through corridors of uncertainty, through grids of hesitation, through pockets of observation and speculation. Every step amplifies the current. Every glance multiplies the tension. Every breath, subtle, unmeasured, becomes a vector of influence. And the assassins, those who once considered themselves clever, precise, lethal, do not notice their own unraveling until it is irreversible. They do not recognize the threshold has been crossed. They do not perceive the shift that renders their tools, their contracts, their confidence meaningless. And as the city leans in, as the streets hum with awareness, as the shadows themselves bend toward observation, the next stage approaches. It is not announced. It does not arrive with sound. It is the quiet expansion of inevitability, the slow crystallization of presence into dominance, the emergence of influence that cannot be countered because it operates at a level beyond comprehension. Every step you take, every subtle movement, every glance, every breath accelerates this process. And the hunters, the whisperers, the contract holders, all sense it, all react to it, all fail to contain it. And in that failure, the tension peaks. The city trembles, not with motion, but with potential, with expectation, with the weight of awareness. The assassins have no choice. They cannot strike. They cannot flee. They cannot negotiate. Their contracts are meaningless. Their skills irrelevant. Their assumptions invalidated. The city itself has declared the outcome, and the outcome is your elevation, your dominance, your unchallenged presence. And as you step further into that space, as the currents fold around your movement, the whispers solidify into acknowledgement. You are beyond reach. You are beyond measure. You are beyond challenge. And just as that realization begins to settle in, as hesitation peaks, as fear crystallizes in microseconds of thought, the next escalation begins. It does not arrive as violence. It does not arrive as announcement. It is the movement, the refinement, the evolution of influence itself. Every hunter who turned down a contract now feels it, even if they do not yet understand it. Every corner, every alley, every corridor, every reflection carries a subtle tremor that bends toward your presence. And in that tremor, inevitability whispers, the next chapter has begun, and it will not wait. And now, as that subtle tremor spreads through every street, every corner, every shadowed corridor, it begins to amplify. The city itself seems to inhale, pause, and shift in response, bending to an order it cannot name. And in that shift, the hunters, the contract holders, the whispers, they begin to feel the shape of inevitability pressing down upon them. It is not a presence they can measure, not a force they can confront, not an event they can anticipate. It is a condition of existence you impose, a gravitational pull that defies logic, that dissolves every calculation, that dismantles every plan before it is formed. And they know it, instinctively, before reason can even frame it. They had imagined you would strike, would make noise, would announce yourself with the arrogance of a predator. But you do not announce. You insinuate. You manifest in microseconds of perception, in the pause before a gun is raised, in the flicker of a shadow that should not move. And every movement they make, every hesitation, every attempted calculation, only reinforces the reality that they are already behind, that you have already won the game they believed they controlled. They are not chasing you, they are being guided by you, manipulated without knowing it, drawn into patterns that they cannot escape, and every instinct they have honed for survival becomes a tool in the architecture of your influence, and the whispers grow louder, not in volume, but in weight. The name you carry begins to resonate in microcurrents of attention, in the split-second calculations of people who do not even know they are participants. Eyes flicker to doorways, shadows lean toward perception, the hum of engines and tires, align with an invisible rhythm you orchestrate effortlessly. Every assassin who once turned down a contract now senses it. Every shadow they thought safe is already part of your presence. And they are paralyzed not by fear of the obvious, but by the realization that the obvious is insufficient, that you operate in dimensions they cannot measure, that you bend probability without effort, that existence itself has shifted in ways that cannot be undone. And yet you do not strike, not yet. The evolution is ongoing. Every step, every subtle gesture, every breath, every glance, every tilt of posture, every shift in focus is calibration. You are refining the currents, amplifying influence, solidifying the architecture of dominance. The city bends without resistance. The streets hum with recognition. The shadows lean closer, and the whispers in alleys and corners transform into a language of inevitability. They sense it, even if they cannot articulate it, even if their conscious minds resist the truth. The hunters are now prey, the contracts irrelevant, the city itself aligned with your movement. And then, micro by micro, the first signs of unraveling appear. The hunter who once walked with confidence falters in mid-step. Their gun hand shakes, though it is not visible. Their calculation, their meticulous plan, collapses in fragments too small for conscious notice. And as one falters, the ripples spread. Another notices a subtle hesitation, another a barely perceptible shift in shadow, another a fragment of awareness that bends the outcome. Before it begins, they react, recalibrate, attempt to regain balance, but they cannot. Every action reinforces the invisible architecture you have constructed. Every hesitation amplifies the inevitability. Every instinct bends toward you, without permission, without comprehension, without resistance. And as the tension builds, you allow it to escalate further. The city becomes a stage, but not a stage they recognize. Every pedestrian, every street lamp, every tire screech, every reflective window, every sound and vibration is already part of the choreography. The hunters believe themselves hidden, calculated, precise, lethal. But they are already moving along trajectories you designed, guided by currents they do not perceive, trapped in patterns they cannot escape. And you do not act overtly because action is unnecessary. The architecture of dominance is complete. Influence is weaponized. Presence is authority. And the hunters sense the truth before it arrives. They are irrelevant. And in that irrelevance, panic begins to settle. Not the kind that announces itself with shouts or noise, but the kind that creeps into microseconds of thought, into hesitation before movement, into the split-second recalculation of outcomes that they cannot control. Their instincts scream, but our reasoning lags behind. Their perception fractures, and they begin to grasp something essential: that the contracts they once held, the plans they once trusted, the confidence they once relied on, all dissolve in the face of a force they cannot name. And as the first traces of panic spread, the city itself seems to whisper along with them, bending every corridor, every shadow, every reflective surface to reinforce the weight of inevitability. And then the hunters begin to move differently. Not because you direct them, not because you strike, but because the environment itself has shifted. Microseconds of hesitation accumulate. Decisions falter. Reactions that once would have been precise now lag, twist, distort. And each imperfection feeds into the architecture you have built, each misstep amplifying influence, each hesitation bending probability toward your favor. They are not aware of the forces guiding them, but they feel it. They react to it. And every reaction tightens the trap, solidifies the inevitability, amplifies the rhythm of escalation you maintain effortlessly. And within that rhythm, you operate at the level they cannot see. You move through currents of anticipation, through layers of perception, through spaces they cannot conceive. Every glance you cast, every subtle shift in posture, every calculated pause becomes a vector of influence. And the hunters, sensing but not understanding, cannot counter it. They attempt strategies, they attempt action, they attempt escape. But the invisible architecture of dominance absorbs and redirects, manipulates and amplifies, dismantles and redirects. Their experience, their skill, their precision, their confidence, all tools they believed would protect them, are rendered inert in microseconds of perception that they cannot measure. And the whispers, the currents, the tremors, they intensify. The city vibrates with awareness. Doors, windows, streetlights, alleys, reflective surfaces, all align unconsciously with the presence you embody. Every hunter senses it. Every observer reacts to it without knowing why. The environment itself reinforces the inevitability, bending outcomes before they materialize, shaping decisions before they are made, imposing dominance before it is noticed. And all of this occurs without overt action, without confrontation, without sound, because the architecture of influence is complete. And as inevitability reaches its apex, the hunters begin to fracture completely. Decisions that would once have been precise now twist and falter. Calculations collapse before completion. Microseconds of hesitation become seconds. Seconds become patterns of disorientation. Disorientation becomes paralysis. And all of this occurs because you exist within a dimension they cannot measure, cannot anticipate, cannot confront. They are not opponents. They are participants in a game whose rules they do not understand, whose outcomes are determined by forces they cannot perceive, whose victory was never possible because control was never theirs. And yet there is method in this chaos. There is design in the escalation. You do not strike impulsively. You do not reveal intent. You are deliberate in every microsecond of movement, in every fraction of attention, in every breath and glance. Influence is weaponized through presence, through anticipation, through subtle calibration of space, time, and perception. And the hunters, reacting without comprehension, continue to validate the architecture you constructed before they even recognized it. Every instinct they have honed is now a tool you manipulate. Every decision they make bends the outcome toward you. Every hesitation amplifies your dominance. And the city itself, responds. Streets lean toward anticipation. Shadows bend toward observation. Light flickers with recognition. The whispers grow into currents that ripple through every alley, every corridor, every corner. And the hunters, sensing the movement, cannot reconcile what they perceive with what they understand. They are trapped in perception, ensnared by anticipation, caught in currents they cannot name. Their skills, their contracts, their confidence, all irrelevant. The environment itself is now part of your influence, and they are powerless to resist. And then, in that perfect calibration of anticipation and influence, the escalation reaches its point of manifestation. You step, subtly, deliberately, into a position that every hunter would have avoided had they understood the architecture. Every microsecond of hesitation, every imperceptible calculation, every shift in perception aligns to reinforce your presence. And they see it then, perhaps too late, perhaps not fully, but they see the shape of inevitability. The city bends around you. Shadows anticipate you. Light responds to you. Every action, every thought, or every hesitation of the hunters amplifies the dominance you wield effortlessly. And there is no combat, no noise, no spectacle. The hunters cannot strike. They cannot flee. They cannot calculate fast enough. Every attempt at action reinforces the architecture of inevitability. Every misstep confirms the truth. You are beyond reach, beyond calculation, beyond fear, beyond opposition. And as they falter, as hesitation crystallizes into paralysis, as microseconds of indecision become patterns of control, the city itself recognizes the reality. Contracts are meaningless. Skill is irrelevant. Dominance is absolute. And now, with the hunters paralyzed in recognition, with the currents aligned, with the whispers solidified into acknowledgement, the final escalation occurs. It is not violence. It is not spectacle. It is refinement. It is calibration. It is the crystallization of presence into unchallenged dominance. Every shadow, every street, every reflective surface, every whispered syllable of your name reinforces what they cannot resist. And in that alignment, you are untouchable. You are beyond opposition. You are not hunted. You are inevitability made tangible. And as the currents pulse through the city, as anticipation solidifies, as every hunter feels the futility of resistance, one truth becomes undeniable. You are beyond them, beyond contracts, beyond fear, beyond calculation, beyond every measure they thought could contain you. The streets whisper it, the shadows bend toward it, the city itself resonates with it, and the hunters, the observers, the contract holders, all sense it and can do nothing but exist within the architecture you have created. Because in the end, action is irrelevant. The moment of confrontation is meaningless. The true victory is movement, perception, anticipation, influence, calibrated, refined, perfected, and you embody all of it effortlessly. They are not your prey, not yet, but they are participants in a reality you control without effort. Every breath, every glance, every subtle tilt of posture confirms it. Every hesitation, every miscalculation, every instinct they cannot suppress amplifies it. And the city hums in recognition. And so, as the whispers solidify, as inevitability pulses, as dominance crystallizes into reality, one final truth emerges. No contract, no skill, no hunter, no calculation, no environment, no whisper, no reflection, no alley, no shadow, no moment exists that can resist you. You are beyond them. You are beyond measure. You are beyond fear. And the city itself bends in acknowledgement. The escalation is complete. The influence is perfected. The hunters are irrelevant.